Pope Francis and French President Emmanuel Macron hold private talks at the Vatican today with European tensions over migrants as a key issue. The two exchanged gifts. The Pope gave Macron a Medal of St. Martin of Tours, and the French president gave him a 1949 edition of a novel by a Catholic writer. After the meeting, which lasted longer than expected, Macron put a hand on Francis' shoulder and kissed him. The Holy Father reciprocated the warmth, shaking the French leader's hand as they departed. For more on the meeting, we go to Vatican correspondent Juliet Lindley, who joins us from Rome. Juliet, the two leaders met for almost 1 hour in the Apostolic Palace's library. What was the atmosphere like, and what were the talks focused on?
Wyatt, the meeting lasted twice as long as Pope Francis's meeting with President Trump a year ago. And it was even longer than the meeting with then-President Barack Obama in 2014. And France's controversial bioethics law was the focus of the talks, what changes could be made in accordance with the teachings of the Church. Now, also on the agenda were migration issues and Europe's migration crisis. The fact that Macron came, met the Pope, but did not meet the head of government, Giuseppe Conte, the new Prime Minister, would highlight, if we want, the tensions between Paris and Rome currently on recent migration issues. So I had a lot on the agenda, and perhaps no surprise that Macron spent almost 1 hour with the Holy Father today.
And after his meeting with the Holy Father, President Macron went to the Basilica of St. John Lateran for a traditional ceremony, usually reserved for French heads of state. During that ceremony, he received an honorary title. Tell us more about the event and about that title.
Why, the title is first and only honorary canon of the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, which is the Pope's cathedral here in Rome, as you know. And it's a medieval tradition. It dates back to the French king Louis XI in 1482, and especially from the time of King Henry IV in the late 1500s. Most recently, it was renewed in the 50s. Now, some former presidents of France have received the title, but others have declined, and that would include Macron's predecessor, French President François Hollande, who is a self-declared atheist. Now, in spite of France's secular history since the 1789 French Revolution, in receiving the title, Macron actually chose to continue this centuries-long tradition.
Juliet, we hear a lot about French society being increasingly secularized. What is the role of the Church in France today, and what relationship does Macron himself have with his faith?
Well, indeed, France is strictly secular under a landmark law from 1905 that separates the state from the Church. But it remains one of the country's most debated rules. And in fact, in April, just a few months ago, Macron made headlines when he said that he wanted to repair the bond between Church and state. And in fact, his acceptance today of the honorary canon title was met with a certain amount of skepticism in the French press. Some observers say it might be an electoral move, given that Catholicism is still France's biggest religion, and many faithful worry the nation has distanced itself too much from its Christian roots. Now, just for some background, Wyatt, Macron chose to be baptized at the age of 12, apparently against his parents' wishes, and he had a Jesuit education. However, despite his Catholic background, he's been known to describe himself as an agnostic.
Well, it's so interesting to hear about all the tradition there at the Vatican, as well as society in France right now as it relates to Catholicism. Juliet Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent. Thanks so much for telling us about it.
Thank you, Wyatt.